Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know I go on these really long bursts of inactivity and I just disappear, not just from YouTube, but from life in general. And this time it was for 30 days. No phone, no Wi-Fi, no technology really, no connection to the outside world for 30 days with 6 other strangers. And I'm going to tell you about it. It's been about a month since returning.
As a quick little disclaimer, it has been now 6-7 months since I last recorded that first reflection update. And looking back on it, it is a scrambled mess because I was very excited and freshly out of expedition. So I just said everything. There was no real organization and I apologize for that, but also want to thank you if you are going to continue watching.
About a month since returning from our 30 days off the grid with the Voyageur Outward Bound School up in Ely, Minnesota, just outside of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, which we did most of our camping and our winter expedition. But what we did out there was cross-country ski, camp in a new place every night, and for a part of it, we took the dogs and went dog sledding. It was an expedition style dog sledding. So we're not riding in the sled, we're pushing the sled with all of our gear, helping the dogs pull about 400 pounds of food, shelter gear, cooking gear, emergency stuff. Sometimes our backpacks, our clothes, sleeping system, and all that. I am making this video for people who aren't able to participate or experience something like that for themselves for whatever reason. I wanted to make it accessible in the best way I could. So I'm going to be interviewing some of the people that were with me. They were complete strangers a month ago, but when you're out there being so vulnerable in crazy temperatures, I think negative 45, 46 was our coldest night winter camping, you're forced to be mentally and emotionally vulnerable as well. It just goes hand in hand when you're in those extreme, challenging conditions with no one else in the middle of nowhere, no access, no roads, no nothing. So we got close emotionally. It shaped us to be a really great team. I came into it with a lot of worry and hesitation of who are these people? Can I trust them? Can I trust myself to be out there with these people who have never met? Am I going to be able to rely on them? So I learned a lot about myself and my relationship to independence and challenge. I don't know, I guess it took a while for me to trust that people could pull their weight and trust that people could carry out tasks. I was just constantly doing stuff and I could have not worked so hard. Obviously, I want the challenge and it's fulfilling to do all of that. But one, it helps other people learn better by giving them the chance to learn the hard way or figure out what needs to be done on their own. Two, it gives me a chance to put my energy towards something else because that other's task was outsourced. So I learned to trust and rely on others there. It's hard for me to not do anything because I feel not useful. But I think just being there and being sometimes that delegatory voice, is that a word? Delegatory? Was helpful. It was still useful, even though that's not a position I'm comfortable with. I don't like telling people what to do. Moving forward in life, how I present myself in relationships with my family, with my friends, in jobs. I don't want to be giving a ridiculous amount of effort when I don't need to be. For longevity and sustainability and for my health and well-being. Because it does feel imbalanced when you're putting way more effort in than you're really even getting in return. And it's okay to receive and it's okay to rely and it's okay to depend on others. And that's something that I'm going to continue to work on moving forward. There's no way we could have known who we were going to be spending the next 30 days, but it all worked out as it should, as I feel like life does. It always just works out. Everything happens for a reason, even the bad stuff, the hard stuff, the brutal stuff like this. It was brutal. It was obviously voluntary in my choice, but we did it. The first week or so was an introductory course where we were training and learning how to make ice holes and learning how to collect firewood properly and chop fell trees and chop the wood. How much do we need every night? How to cook and all that. How to take care of the dogs. Second week was less training, more of the hands-off for the instructors where we did a little more on our own. And during that, we had 2 days of solo time. So we'd have our own spot on the lake. We didn't see each other for 2 days. We had to collect firewood on our own and make the fire on our own, cook dinner on our own, boil snow on our own because we didn't have our own ice axes. We would just boil snow instead of collecting water from an ice hole from the lake, and set up shelter, our tarps on our own. And that was really peaceful. So that was part of the second longest expedition, which was 12 days. And then our last 4 or 5 days or so, we were basically completely on our own. Our instructors had their own camp set up. They would trail behind us, but we wouldn't interact with them. They had their own camp set up. They did their own thing. So we were on our own for that last 4 or 5 days or so with no one but ourselves to lead us. And I really saw a lot of people step up. It was our opportunity to step up, and all of us did in whatever way we felt like we needed to work on. Because over the course of the month, our strengths and weaknesses, really, it was quick for them to surface. When you're in that kind of environment, like I said, you're kind of forced into facing the truths. We had 3, 4 opportunities to shower in between expeditions on base. But 12 days was the longest time I've gone without a shower. And I was okay. If anything, I would have liked to moisturize more because I did get windburn. You can't see it on my face right now anymore, but it was black in this area. I'm glad it wasn't frostbite, but I did get windburn.
You do notice some of my windburn in that first video recording. Now it's gone, but if you compare it to the video that I shot 6, 7 months ago, I did have a darker patch here from windburn. Even though I was wearing full coverage, a ski mask, the wind still cut through it. And that's why I mentioned having moisturizer. Apparently Vaseline helps with that, to just trap in the moisture.
And my fingers were tingly for probably several weeks after getting out of that. We did make an ice hole every single time we moved camp because we needed to collect water from the lake that we were skiing and camping on. And sometimes it would be up to 3 feet deep, which is insane. We would have to make an ice hole every night to boil our water for drinking, but also water for cooking, dinner, and breakfast stuff. We'd have 2 breakfasts every day. Lunch was just like our snack. We would just have our squirrel bag, which was a bag of snacks that we'd munch on throughout the day. So that was considered lunch. And then dinner we'd have after we've completed most of the tasks when we got to our new camp. So again, making another ice hole, collecting all the firewood, felling a tree for chopped wood that we needed to saw and then chop. We'd have to set up shelter. So that's digging out whatever snow under the tent, set up the tarps, tie the ropes. And then the next day we'd clean it all up. We'd LNT the area, so leave no trace, basically. Make it look like we were never there. Leave it better than you found it concept. And then find a new campsite and do it all over again. So it was constant activity. If we weren't doing something productive, we were still moving because we needed to stay warm, because inactivity means cold. So it was constant movement and constant putting on layers, taking off layers because we get hot in our 6 layers of clothes. And so basically that's what we did. Dinners and breakfasts were actually pretty good. We usually had a bagel and bacon or a bagel and sausage for our first breakfast every morning, which I always looked forward to. Something about food cooked over the fire, especially bacon grease and sausage grease over the fire with a lot of butter on a bagel. Something about that is just special, especially when there's a hint of stick, a hint of wood in there. It's just like that extra flavor. Same with dinner. My favorite was our pesto night. But we'd also have beans and rice, or, oh, I also really like the wild rice stew. Love wild rice. So hearty and filling. One of the harder things for me was just eating fast, because eating was not for enjoyment. It was for function and to stay warm and to fuel up. Dinners were a little intense because we had to eat, but we also had to discuss our question of the day. Over the fire, we'd have a question we'd think about. What are your fears going into this? And then I loved that we all got so vulnerable with each other. We didn't hold back at all. So we had to eat, discuss, and we had to dry our feet every night over the fire while we're eating. So dinner was a busy time because we're wearing 3 layers basically on our feet. Liner socks plus basically a plastic bag over our feet called a vapor barrier layer, VBL, and then another sock over that, like a wool sock over that. And moisture happens throughout the day, and we don't want to go to bed with cold feet, so we'd have to dry all of that out, dry out all of our other gear, any gloves that got wet, any face coverings, beanies that got wet throughout the day. And that happens. It's like you're sweating, but then you're also in snow, so there's a lot of moisture, and it's just freezing and sweating and freezing and thawing, and it's just like that cycle. So it was a busy time, and we also had to boil water, and we had to cook food, and we had to serve the food. So that was a change of pace for me because I usually take 2 hours to eat my meals, but that was not the case here. Even in the morning, I couldn't take a lot of time to eat my food. It was purely functional. That was one thing I did miss, just enjoying my food and eating at my own pace. Another hard thing for me was just peeing in the middle of the night. I really did not enjoy having to unzip my 3 layers of sleeping bag and then having to put my 3 layers of foot system before my big heavy boots to pee in negative 40 degrees, to undo it all, take it all off, zip it all back up, just to pee. And it was not pleasant. But I really miss the digital detox. I miss not having a phone. It was really nice to reconnect with all my friends and family, but I don't like having a device on me that's constantly going off. I miss not having that, or really responsibility other than the present responsibilities for my survival, which was the case out there. And I saw the payoff of those responsibilities as I did them right away. And it contributed directly to my health and well-being and survival out there. Whereas in our digital world, it's just like, what's this doing for me? Unless I'm sharing something creative like this. I do miss that. I do miss creativity. Speaking of recording all of it, my GoPro didn't work for most of the time because it was way too cold. It was even in a housing, but it was too cold for it to work. So there's limited footage. We did have a group camera that we shared. So I have some snaps on that I'm sharing, but it's just a fraction of what we did visually. And I kept all the batteries in my GoPro on my body in my innermost layer, along with my contact lenses and my toothpaste and lotion and things that I didn't want to freeze up, because it will freeze up. And still, it wasn't enough for the batteries. Speaking of freezing up, just so many water bottles that were left undrank because they've frozen up. My wrists are still recovering from having to open those frozen water bottles. We learned that hitting a stick on it or hitting something hard on it was really helpful. Otherwise, you have to wait till getting back to base camp to thaw it out. We basically wore 5 layers at most with an anorak, 2 or 3 layers of pants, 3 layers of foot covering under a mouse boot. So basically it's waterproof. Things we did at base camp was just go over how we function as a group and how we can make things more efficient. We went over some of our personal goals, our group goals on expedition, goals in life. Super productive time. We ate really well, got to shower at base camp. And we also learned some skill in between, like water rescue. If someone were to fall on the ice, we practiced that. Basically jump in the ice hole that we use for the sauna. That's also something else we did while at base camp. We got to enjoy the sauna and ice hole, so the cool and the hot, all that stuff with the steam and the essential oils. Oh, that was amazing. We used that ice hole to simulate an ice rescue in 2 situations where you don't have clothes to change into and where you do have clothes to change into. But both scenarios is you, if possible, take all the wet things off, put dry things on. And if you can't take all the wet things off, just start your exercises right away. Your warming exercises, so jumping jacks, running in circles, arm swing, vigorous arm swings, and anything to just get that blood pumping and get you moving. And so movement and fuel helps to stay warm. That's why we have a big meal at dinner time just before bed. And that's why we have warming circle right before bed as well, so we can trap all that heat in our sleeping bag. We'll do jumping jacks and anything to warm us up. We had to feel rosy. We're getting hot and we're getting on the verge, not sweaty, but on the verge of sweat, because we don't want to sweat, otherwise it'll freeze. And then we could trap all that heat in our sleeping bag. Usually that was effective. We didn't have to wake up to pee 3 times a night, like me. But outside of that, it's effective. Moving forward, I'm just going to communicate better, resolve conflict better. My personal favorite was the O4 tool that we learned. It's an acronym, OFOR. Observation, what's happening? What's the situation? Describe it. F, feeling, how do I feel about it? How do I feel about the situation? Ownership, what part do I play? What accountability am I, and what am I taking accountability of? Request, R, what do I want out of this? How do I want to move forward? What is my request in improving the situation or making it more of an ideal situation? And that is helpful in group situations, in one-on-one situations. And I used it once with our team on a day when it was after our longest day. It was an 8.5 mile day. And the group was kind of in 2 different directions. Some of the group wanted to chill because the next day was a short, easy day. And then half the group wanted to still keep up the efficiency, keep the momentum going after this 8.5 mile day. And so I brought up, we're obviously on 2 different sides right now. And I feel like the observation was that I feel like we're not communicating great because there are these 2 different expectations of how we want to move forward with our night and into the next morning, into our easy day tomorrow, but we're not lining up. So I feel like this is causing tension with members of our group, feeling F. And then I take ownership of not communicating sooner or not stopping tensions as I saw them rising sooner, and request moving forward to communicate better. Let's talk about what our expectations are and find a compromise of what works for everybody moving forward after this really long day and a really short day ahead. That's one example. But it can be applied to anything and anyone in any situation, and I'm really happy I learned it. I also really appreciated learning the combination for happiness, which starts with clear communication, which leads to clear expectations, which leads to consistent action, which leads to trust. And then it ultimately ends in happiness. So that's all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any thoughts about this whole experience. Have you done something like this? Do you plan on doing something like this? Any tips? Anything I missed? Thank you so much. Shout out to Julie and Phyllis. Shout out to all of my awesome teammates and new family that did this thing with me, and anyone who participated in interviews afterwards. And love and miss you all. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon. Hey, Sash, do you want to be on camera? Do you want to go on a walk? Are you ready for a walk? Hi, Sash.
And thank you again for following along on this journey and being patient with my scrambled thoughts and just letting me reflect in this kind of chaotic way.